What is going on, everybody? Bobby Fi here, and we I wanted to go through a few things before we get into the slate and everything. Sheets is going to be out for a couple more days. All thoughts with him and his family right now. A lot of stuff going on, so we're just hoping they're hanging in there and looking forward to having him back. Hopefully around Wednesday or so. Could be in and out a little bit over the next period of time. Just a heads up. Did want to announce some on a positive note. We have partnered with PayDirt DFS. That all the tools that James and the gang over there have created are absolutely awesome. We'll do a lot of videos and we'll get into it more a little bit in detail, but I really hope you guys take advantage of it. All members who have already been members have access to everything. This is going to be a part of all of our packages pretty much. So I really would encourage if you want to jump on board, now would be a great time. This is an awesome set of tools. To combine with the fact that partnership with SaberSim and obviously Sheets and Goldies projections, which are absolutely fantastic, along with all of our content, mine, Brandon, Adams. It's a good time. It's a good time for us. We're really growing, and we're excited that you guys are all a part of it. So I wanted to say thank you for that, and also we look forward to seeing you if you haven't joined us yet. I'm going to get into this slate, go game by game. I ran sort of just a build without touching much. I had to do my minimum 2-player edit of what we're at, and I thought I'd run the sims, talk about the games, and sort of think about where I'd be at as of right now. These first looks in the NBA, especially toward the end of the season, they're not irrelevant because they get you geared up for the slate and ideas of what you want to do going forward with it. But we know that everything's going to be different before lock, so I want to try to make notes of things that I see early in the morning that I don't want to lose sight of, because it's often easy to lose track of some of that stuff later in the day, and I think it's really important not to, because we see some guys early who look like great value that we tend to forget about, and it doesn't mean they're not great value. We just end up with other pieces. But these early ones, we still want to keep doing them as long as people are there. So if you don't mind, if you're not a member, if you are a member, can you subscribe, all that stuff? And with that said, I'm going to get into this slate and talk a little bit about what we're looking at today, going game by game. Now, this is just the raw numbers. Gave me these exposures at first build. Everything's going to change in a little bit. There's already been players announced out. But we're going to go game by game and sort of go through this and make the most sense we can. I've just got my double screens pulled up here. So with that said, 10-game slate on both sites. Philadelphia and Atlanta, game 7:30 Eastern. So we will be live at 6:30 Eastern, not at 6 Eastern. Reminder, 6:30 Eastern, not 6. We have a little bit of a later start with more games, and it's a very condensed slate, which is kind of interesting. Not as much for late swapping stuff where we have an idea of what's happening in the first games, but it is still really valuable. If you're not using the late swap tool on SaberSim or through whatever provider you have, I think that it's really a big mistake, and you can use the late swap through us on TrueDFS/SaberSim, and it'll still do the exact same thing it does on SaberSim. It's really valuable. I think we have an awesome, like I said, an awesome set of tools with combining James's stuff with ours from PayDirt. And I know I'm a little bit, it's Monday, so I'm a little rusty. I had to be out Friday because of a medical procedure, but everything went well. So I'm, if I struggle a little bit, bear with me. We'll make some sense of this slate as we go through it. All right. Philadelphia and Atlanta, obviously a great matchup for Philadelphia pace-wise. Now, you do have to worry about some blowouts. You can see the endless injury list that they have going with George, all the guys we expect, and Maxey out. So you're gonna see a lot of Lonnie Walker early in the day. I think it makes sense. There's just not enough bodies that they have that can actually create shots. I also think that for some reason, Quentin Grimes at no ownership is kind of appealing to me. We've seen a different side of him since he's gone over to Philly, and he's put up 40 or more in 3 out of the last 5, including one big 63 fantasy point game. This is the kind of spot where you could see that again. So I actually am going to make a note on Grimes as being a guy who I'm going to manually upgrade his projection a little later if SaberSim doesn't in fact do that for us. I also think that Jared Butler is interesting, as well as Justin Edwards. I think you're going to be looking at least one from Philadelphia. I think for most people that's going to be Lonnie Walker, probably for me as well. But I would like to add a little bit of the Grimes. And the other guy who I just feel like doesn't get enough love here is Kelly Oubre. We had the one really down game, but other than that, he's been pretty good in these situations, and he's very active. Atlanta's the kind of team you could see him having a big game against. So Grimes and Oubre are ones that I'm willing to change my projection on just to get to some more exposure there. Anyway, we are going to move over to the Atlanta side. I'm not sure how I feel about this Guille thing. There's a lot of value on this slate. He hasn't hit 20 fantasy points since February 7th. That's what, 10, 11 games. I'm going to say down. So I have my list of guys who I'll lower on than the field, and I'll make sure I have to lower their projection in order to do so. And Guille is one of them. I just think that there's no reason to really get overly involved here. Not overly invested in myself on the Atlanta side, unless you wanted to make a game stack, which I'm okay to do. I'm open to doing a couple by hand that way. But for the most part, I think that it would mostly be Levert for me as my favorite play. And I think that Okongwu, it's a good matchup for him. But nobody I really want to go way out of my way to do anything on the Atlanta side. Not as great a matchup. Philly plays a little slower. They're really beaten up. Blowout's totally in play. Levert, you could play the blowout angle. That makes some sense, but not overly invested in it either way. So, all right, Lakers in Brooklyn after the loss to Boston the other night. I'm going to be lower on. I don't think we're going to end up with that much Trey Jameson by the end of the day. Now, it is weird 3K starting, but they don't have a ton of bodies. With no LeBron tonight. I think that the projections are still trying to figure this one out too. You're going to have a hard time talking me off of Luka. With no LeBron, I just don't know how we're not supposed to get to more of this. My guess is the projections haven't updated for no LeBron yet, so that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now. But I think we really want to get a lot more Lakers exposure, and it's probably LeBron and Reeves are probably the two most interesting. And after that, I think Jordan Goodwin becomes a little bit interesting. I think that you could argue for guys. Vanderbilt's not the most fun play in the world because, he doesn't have to get there. And the only problem I have with the Goodwin idea is that Shake Milton and Gabe Vincent could easily eat those minutes with Doncic getting the bulk of the actual offensive load. Reeves being the secondary. And then who's the third scorer? Maybe it's Connect tonight. So I'm going to be much higher on the Lakers than these numbers. And my guess is the projections will update and the Lakers are going to be a team that you're going to want to focus on tonight. But there's a lot of spots where people are out tonight. It's late season NBA. It's what happens. Little D'Angelo Russell revenge. Now, if this game was in LA, I would be even higher on it. But also coming off of 51.5, I like Russell quite a bit tonight. I'm going to say D. Russ is going to be a guy who probably the one guy I have interest in a major way on the Brooklyn side. If you wanted to play Zaire Williams or Keon Johnson, I have no issue with it. I'm just not going out of my way to get them or Cameron Johnson. But certainly can't argue with any of those plays. And even Claxton to some extent at center with Jameson on the other side, I think is somewhat interesting. Washington and Toronto, we have it again with we've got the Sar Vukcevic front court with no Holmes. I really like Sar, and it is it's not a back-to-back actually. They played Saturday. I like Sar a little bit more than maybe the projections do, but I think he's very reasonable. Jordan Poole has been really good lately, and we've seen some monster performances out of him. He can be streaky a little bit, but he put a 54 the other night. The matchup is solid. I think that Poole and Sar are probably my two favorites. Don't mind if you want to take a stab at Vukcevic, but just make sure you realize that it is just a stab. We've seen him play limited minutes even in this situation before. Doesn't mean he hasn't been productive. He's had some decent games in these spots, but put up 24 the other night in 17 minutes. But we just at 17, 18 minutes, we haven't seen him play 20 minutes in the last 9 games, or 8 games. So I just not quite as high on that, but certainly a decent spot here, especially for Jordan Poole and Sar. Those would be the two that I have the most interest in. On the Toronto side of things, there's plays that I think we would be all over on other slates. On this slate, I'm not sure that's the case. I think Scotty Barnes, I know he had a disappointing game the other night, but I think Scotty Barnes is probably my favorite. I think you could certainly argue for all these other guys. I just don't feel like you need it on this particular slate. Scotty Barnes, Quickly, or Barrett are probably the ones I'm rolling with. And if you need super value, Orlando Robinson, I just don't feel as great about the Robinson thing. I've seen this fail so many times, and it could easily become Chris Boucher. But look, he's put up 24 back-to-back games. It's not a bad idea. I think the Boucher thing at no ownership is a little bit interesting. Am I missing something? Yeah, Boucher. Oh, wait, we got him projected at 0. That's a little weird to me. Oh, he hasn't played. You know what? He's been sort of taken out of the rotation. Excuse me. I just feel like a pivot off of Robinson was something I was looking for. Maybe the answer would be more like Castleton. But yeah, I'm open to it. Not overly excited about it. Charlotte and Miami, catch me up game. No interest in anything here. If you wanted to take a shot with LaMelo, no problem. If you wanted to take a shot with Nurkic and somehow he ends up start. Well, he's not going to start because Mark Williams is there. I just think that it probably is out, not for me. I think there's too many games to talk about. In those early games we talked about, there's a lot to like. Khalil Ware coming off a big game. I'm probably mostly off of Miami, depending on what happens with Robinson, Highsmith, and Burks. It feels weird to say that with the guys that they've got out, but maybe Tyler Hero. But again, it's a good matchup, but just nobody who I'm going to go out of my way to try to play for Miami. If I end up with some Tyler Hero, so be it. Utah, cannot find anything I like. Now, they're probably going to announce a couple of these guys out later, and somebody's going to look good. As of right now, it's really hard to analyze who that's going to be. But so not overly interested in the Utah side. On the Boston side, look, we have the Q tags as usual. Porzingis is doubtful. Tatum just absolutely annihilated the Lakers the other night. I see him getting a ton of ownership because we have money to spend on this slate. Fine. Again, just sort of fine with where the projections are at. Don't really feel like I need to tweak anything. All of these plays I think are solid. It Tatum questionable, Horford questionable. Either of those guys are out. We're probably going to end up looking at guys like Pritchard again, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Boston has they're starting to get closer and closer to locking up that number 2 spot in the East. And with that, I just think that they're going to be resting guys more often than not as we go down the stretch, just getting ready for the postseason. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of things in the comments. Jonesy says he loves the range of outcomes already from Paydirt. It helped for player pools in NBA and PGA. Absolutely. Paydirt's range of outcomes tool, one of the tools that they offer for with us over here. And by the way, all their stuff we have here. We're loading up everything, and I just think it's really, really awesome to have those tools. And James does a great job. So we're really, really pumped about this partnership. Orlando in Houston. Again, Paolo's got a little more expensive. I would have no issue. I probably will bump Paolo up a little bit. I probably will bump front. In fact, I'll just do it right now because I think nothing's going to really change massively. I think it's reasonable to take shots on these guys, as I point out that most of the time you're going to see one of those three, or Anthony get there. So I'll just bump them up just a tiny bit and see if maybe I get a little bit more on the other runs. But either way, not a desirable matchup. We just don't, I just think there's a massive ceiling there that's not being accounted for. So I don't mind bumping those guys up just a little, just a couple points, a point or two here and there. Houston, Fred VanVleet is questionable. If he's out, we go back to Tari Eason potentially. We potentially go to Jalen Green. We potentially go to basically, with no Amen Thompson, I feel like we're supposed to do something. It's a little tricky because they are, other than that, much healthier than they have been if VanVleet is back. Now, if VanVleet is out, it's different. As of right now, not getting to a ton of the Houston side. Denver and OKC. This Westbrook projection is pretty aggressive, but it's in OKC, so I'm going to probably let it cook. I'm probably going to roll with some of the Westbrook. And I am going to definitely want to try to get to Jokic tonight. I think that they want to bounce back after losing to these guys the other day. I think that we want to take some shots here. So if Jokic is good to go, I'm good to take shots with both Westbrook. It's not even shots. I think they're both solid plays, Westbrook and Jokic. On the OKC side, in competitive games, everybody knows I love Shea in that situation. So I actually think I'll bump up Shea's projection just a little bit. Now, what do they have to play for other than this is a team that everyone says that they're going to struggle with in the playoffs? They're going to be the number 1 seed. It's not even really much of a question, not really in doubt anymore. I think Shea and Jalen Williams are both kind of interesting. So that's sort of like 2 that I'm considering making some changes on a little bit later today. Then we get to the really fast-paced game that's not getting any attention. Feels like we're supposed to do something here. I'm going to say Halliburton or Siakam. And I think I'll go out of my way to try to be above the field just because the matchup is so pure. I also think Ben Mathurin, who just showed up, put up a huge game the other night, seemingly out of the blue, but really he had been out for a little bit. He had 52, and we haven't seen that kind of ceiling from him in a while. But I love Mathurin, and I think this is a spot where Mathurin could go nuts. So I'm just going to put Indy as a team. I think you could argue for, depending on who's available, just sort of bumping up everyone's projections because this is a really, really good game environment against Chicago. And on the other side, you're going to want some pieces of Chicago, especially Josh Giddey is the obvious one. Trey Jones is really cheap, but I think there's other plays we could use at point guard that we don't need to do that. I think that as of right now, I've got Giddey as the priority, but Kobe White at low ownership is kind of interesting to me. So I'm going to put a little note on that, Kobe White. I think there's enough ceiling to take some chances with Kobe White here. And Giddey's been the guy lately, but we saw Kobe White. He put up 58 a couple games ago, 47 the game before that. He's 7,200. I think there's enough ceiling to really go for it. Giddey has been just unbelievable. Really hard to ignore that play, but I think you could play them together in this type of game environment. Just a lot of plays in this slate, so you kind of have to pick and choose some spots. Dallas in San Antonio. Now, this is where all the ownership's going, right? And I'm going to just double check the number of bodies for Dallas tonight before we do anything else. Dallas has got 9 available bodies right now. So just all of Dallas is going to be it's going to be hard to get away from. I don't even think you'd need to mess with much with the projections. I think that the projection's a little bit low on Christie. He's one I could see bumping up a little bit. We still are waiting on Caleb Martin and Dwight Powell, but there's a chance they only have 9 guys tonight. And if that's the case, it's going to be basically impossible to ignore them, ignore at least having 1 or 2 of them, especially in this matchup in San Antonio. We had it before, but I believe they were playing like Miami or something. I think we're going to want a lot of exposure to this game, and I'm sort of happy to let it cook. It's also the latest game, so you're going to be able to pivot along the way with the late swaps. If you're not going to have a great idea of how your early players are performing because it's not that far into the day, but it will at least allow you to get a little bit different with the late swap. And as of right now, I think you'd be looking at one minimum from Dallas probably in every lineup, and potentially 2 or 3. These projections seem a little bit aggressive in a couple cases, but until you realize they just don't have enough bodies. So it's really hard to ignore a spot like this, even on a big slate. San Antonio, can't find anything to get to. If I did, I think Vassell would be the one along with Sohan. Vassell showed his upside to help Sheets win a tournament last week, and I think that's a very reasonable route to go. So I am totally fine with the idea of taking just a stab and you get the good Vassell game, but I think there's just too many other plays in the slate for me to get there personally. The only reason why this would be a little bit more appealing is you have a natural game stack if this game stays close, because Dallas you're going to end up getting a lot from. So that's sort of my quick look of game by game, what I'm doing. Good to see Mark in here. Good to see Andy in here. Guys, make sure, pop in any questions or thoughts. I know it's early in the day, so probably not going to have a lot of questions, but just take a quick look over at FanDuel while we're at it and see if there's anything that's so much different. I think there's a couple night slate games this week too. So, or tonight too, I should say. Let me just go to the lineups page and see if there's anything that's that much different. It's still sort of the same names. I still think this projection on Goodwin might be a little bit aggressive, but I'm not opposed to it. I just think it's maybe a little bit high. But basically fairly similar, just you don't need quite as much value and you don't have quite as much value. I'm going to say that Vukcevic is a guy we might not want to be getting on at limited minutes. What do we have him for minutes wise? I feel like he's always over projected minutes. They've got him at 21. Again, hasn't hit that 20 mark in these situations anytime recently. This game should be fairly competitive, so it's unlikely that he hits it, but I don't think the median should be 21. I think it should be more like 18 or 19, which is more where he's been at. Hey, appreciate the kind words, Rick. Again, to anybody watching this video anytime of the day, give us the like, subscribe. We appreciate it. And yeah, really excited about the pay dirt stuff. Check out the tools. If you have any questions about them, James is really good about explaining them. He's posted some videos also that he and Cheats did. I would encourage people in the premium Discord to check out some of those videos. And really, now is a great time to come join us. And we're really trying to make some moves and build this site into the best DFS site out there. And I think we're getting on our way. So Sheets can prove that alone. Maybe we just say Sheets is. I mean, we don't even know Sheets is out, and somehow he still wins tournaments. It's just incredible what that guy's been able to do. Again, wishing all well for him right now, and looking forward to having him back shortly. So good luck, everybody, today. We'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards, hopefully later tonight, and we will see you live at 6:30 Eastern as I will go over the show again. Appreciate you all. Good luck, everybody.